I wanted to become the first and the only one in history at something. I wanted to go to all the countries in the world without flying and be the first in history to reach every country in an unbroken journey complete without flying. So that was the why, and that was the motivating part in 2013. And then at the same time, I was thinking, and it will also be a great adventure. I will see countries I've never seen before. I will meet people I've never met before. I will taste food. I will see colors in a sunset. I will listen to music I've never heard before. It'll be a great, great adventure at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then I thought I would accomplish all of it in less than 4 years as well.
What's up? Welcome to Stories 100 podcast. It's your host Ajay Sharma. Our next guest, Thor Pedersen, he's on a very special journey. He's on a journey to visit all the countries in the world. In fact, he's been to 194 countries so far. And you know what is unique about his journey? Not only he's doing this travel on a single journey, he's also doing it without using a plane. I mean, he's not flying on a plane. This is something that's so unique because most of us, when we go travel, we always go on a plane, especially when we have to go to a different country. He's doing it without a plane. He shared on this podcast about his journey, about meeting different people, visiting different cultures, trying out different foods. Let's get to know more about his journey and help me welcome Thor Pedersen to the podcast today.
I am traveling to every country in the world. I'm doing it in a single journey, and I'm doing it without flying.
Hey Thor, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Good morning from Hong Kong. Good evening to you.
Thank you so much. It's like 9 p.m. here and it's like 9 a.m. your time over there.
That's right, yeah.
So you in Hong Kong, how long have you been there right now?
I almost lost track. I reached Hong Kong on a container ship on January 28th, 2020. So it's more than 400 days now.
Okay, wow. 400, so it's a little over a year.
Yeah. Quite a bit over a year.
A little over a year. So
yes.
So I just picked up on that. You said container ship.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, it's sort of a privilege I have within this project. I'm going to every country there is in the world completely without flying, which means that when I'm crossing oceans and going out to small island nations and so on, I need to get more creative. And I've been able to build up a relationship with several shipping lines that are helping me out, so I get to travel on board as a passenger.
That's awesome. That is awesome. That is such a great example of, like, you know, if you wanna like do something with your passion, and a lot of people find limitation in resources, right? You're like one of those people that actually, you know, it seems that you actually have figured that out, how to get around, and doing without a plane. And, you know, just to let the viewers and the listeners know, you have traveled 203 countries so far, right?
No, not quite yet. That is the overall target, to reach 203. I've reached 194 countries at this point.
You have done 194 countries. Yeah. That's amazing.
So, that is basically all of it. And then I got stuck in Hong Kong due to the pandemic, 9 countries before completing this project.
Wow. That's just that is different. You know, that's a record by itself. I mean, I was trying to Google it. I don't think I was able to find anybody who has visited that many countries, or I mean, all together. And not only that, I mean, that's a record by itself, to going to that many countries. Secondly, to be able to do it without actually using the conventional means, like everybody flies everywhere.
Yes.
So I wanted to know, like, how did the idea come about that you wanted to do this?
Well, it's a good question. I have a background within shipping and logistics, and I've been working within that field for more than a decade. And I finished off a project up in the Arctic Circle and came home to Denmark. And my father sent me an email, and there was a link, and I read the article. And the article was about world travelers and people going to every country in the world. And by reading that article, I discovered that no one in history has gone to every country in the world completely without flying. And I was intrigued by that. There are some people who have tried, there are some people who came close, but completely without flying, no one has accomplished that so far. And roughly 200 people, maybe 250 people have gone to every country in the world. But I didn't think I was going to do it. It was a very slow build-up. And then eventually, on the 10th of October 2013, I left Denmark and crossed the border to Germany.
Wow. So when you first started, was your idea like, visiting a few countries and then it expanded upon that, or how did that work out?
No, I suppose it's like that for most people. This story is a little bit more
like
crazy.
Most people think, hey, I just want to try it out. I'm gonna go to a few countries, and then if it works out, then I'm gonna expand out to something bigger.
Yeah, my good friend Gunnar Garfors, he's been to every country in the world twice. So he's one of the few people who have done that. And that was exactly how it went for him. He enjoyed traveling. Suddenly he reached 40 countries, 50 countries. Then he thought, oh, do you think I could go to 100? He went to 100, and then he said, okay, I'm going to all. For me, it was different. I sat at home. I had already traveled quite a bit. I sat at home. I said, no one has done this before. I need to lay down some ground rules. What are these rules? So I said, okay, first of all, no flying. If I fly, the project is over. Second, 24 hours in each country. It has to be more than 24 hours or else I cannot count it as a visit. And third, I said, I cannot go back home until I reach the final country or if I quit the project, because it needs to be one journey. And for that reason, I needed to go out from my home and then say, I start with 0 and then go to all the countries in one go. So I've reached 194 countries in an unbroken journey, completely without flying. I haven't been home for more than 7 years now, and I've been stuck in Hong Kong for far more than a year due to the pandemic.
Wow. And and I'm assuming that the pandemic probably slowed you down a little bit. You probably had plans during the pandemic to, if the pandemic didn't happen, you probably would have finished the 9 countries that you want to visit now.
Yeah, I was supposed to finish by October in 2020, but then, I'm still here in Hong Kong.
Exactly. So to give a little bit of the background, so where did you grow up and what did you want? What was your idea of when I grow up, this is what I want to be?
Yeah, my mother is from Finland and my father is from Denmark. I was born in Denmark, and then soon after I was born, we moved to Canada. And we lived 4 years in Canada before going to the United States. And we lived 2.5 years in the United States. And then I was back in Denmark before the age of 7. And in my early days, I thought that I wanted to be a fireman, or I wanted to be a ninja, or I wanted to be all sorts of different things. My father, he was a salesman, and I finished business school, and then I was drafted to the military. And the military, they sent me to the Royal Life Guard. So I was guarding the Queen's Palace for a year, and then I decided, well, I'll move. Well, yeah, thank you. And then I decided I wanted to pursue a small career within the military. So I became a United Nations peacekeeper, and they sent me on a mission to East Africa, where I was in Eritrea, based out of Eritrea, and on a mission Eritrea, Ethiopia. And then after a couple of years within the United Nations, I decided it was time to pursue a career within shipping and logistics. So I became a shipping trainee, and I followed that career path for about 12 years of my life.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. You've done quite a bit of things. When it comes to travel, right? I'll share my experience with you, and I want to know from you, because you've been to so many different places. Every time I go out of my local area, we live in Miami, Florida, which is pretty busy as well. But at the same time, whenever I go to Europe, when I go to Asia, it opens me up to so many different experiences. I learned so much by looking at cultures, looking at people, looking at places and all that. What has your experience been like? What's the most amazing thing about it?
It has been like nothing else. and that's for good and for worse. It has been an education in a multitude of things. It's been an education in myself. It's been an education within culture, food, people. It's been an education within history. It's been an education in personal stamina. It's been an education in a million different ways. And
I can totally relate. Yeah, that's usually how most people feel about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like some of the lessons have come really, really hard earned, but overall, really, really valuable. And I think so. One thing that some people sometimes overlook is that this has been going on for a very, very long time, maybe too long. So if you go out and travel for pleasure, say, I want to see the world, I want to taste some food, I want to meet some people, I want to see some places, then you might run out of gas after 6 months or 8 months or a year. And then you feel like, okay, I met enough people, I tried enough food, I saw enough temples. Now I want to go home, I want to look through my photos, I want to reestablish myself, and I want to recharge my batteries, and then perhaps go traveling again after 6 months or a year or a couple of years or so. And I left home in 2013. And in the beginning, it was 80% adventure and 20% work. And then gradually it was 30% work and 40% work. And then eventually it flipped over and it was 80% work, getting the tickets, applying for the visas, finding out where am I going to sleep, am I going to take the bus and the train. You know, it was research, and then just 20% fun. And at this point, after 7 years, it feels more like a job, to be honest. There's still some very, very good experiences, but I would much prefer that I was home again.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I noticed about your work and your which you shared on your website, onceuponasaga.dk, I believe, right? Yeah, DK.
Yes.
And so on that, you know, what I really like about your work is that you actually introduce different cultures, different people through your pictures to like, you know, some of the places that I would not even have known about, I would never think about visiting places, but I still get to know and see those places through you. And I see that in your work, and to be honest with you, me looking at it, I appreciate that you know, here's a guy who's traveling and he's actually showing me the world because he's visiting it and he's sharing those memories with everybody. And that's like, it takes a special type of person to do that. So I mean, that's just awesome that what you're doing. And yeah, I found that very nice.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Yeah, that's very nice. So you know, in your travel, like, you know, like share like, you know, like a couple of experiences where, I mean, things might have been like, you know, like super cool or scary or, you know, like something like that. I mean, because I mean, the travel by itself, I mean, it sounds like cool. Like when like you said, like if you're going to like doing some leisure travel, it's like fun. You go to places that are most visited, but there's also some scary places in the world too. And then there's some other places that nobody has ever seen that people should go and visit, because, you know, you get to see the beauty of it, but they're not the most popular spots that are promoted, you know?
Yeah, that's very, very true. So danger comes in various forms. Sometimes you're in danger and you don't even know it. And sometimes you're in danger and you definitely know it. And sometimes danger comes from other people, and sometimes danger just comes from an unlucky situation. And the last one, where danger comes from an unlucky situation, I can tell you that I was on board a container ship heading from Iceland to Canada. And the voyage was supposed to take 8 days, but unfortunately we hit a storm. We're up in the North Sea, where the ocean gets really, really rough. And the waves, they started building up, the swells started building up, the ship was going from one side to the other, it was going forward and back and up and side and around. And the waves were crashing in over the container, and it was raining, and there was thunder and lightning, and it was dark, and it just looked terrible. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life.
Scary.
And yeah, chairs were falling on their side, and it was difficult to walk and stand on your feet. It was impossible to do most things. Or, of course, it wasn't impossible. It was very, very difficult to get something to eat, or to sleep, or to even have a shower or go to the toilet and things like this. And this lasted 4 days, and I was absolutely sure that we were not going to survive this storm. It felt too violent and too dangerous for me.
4 days is a long time. You kind of think that, like it kind of, if you have it at night time and it's over by the time the morning comes up, it's okay.
Yeah.
But 4 days in a row, that's difficult to deal with.
But I felt quite calm for the most part of it, because I managed to get up on the bridge and speak to the officers, and I was very tense, and I was sure everything was terrible and we needed to get evacuated or rescued and so on. But the men on board, the seafarers, they obviously had experience and they knew what they were doing. And they were laughing at me. They were saying, "This is nothing, don't worry about it, we're going to be okay, just make sure you don't fall off the boat." And so on. So I really just needed to ride out the storm. And after 4 days, the storm came to an end and the water was completely calm, and we could see whales and dolphins, and it was really, really beautiful. So, but I tell you, I definitely felt in danger in that moment. Then a different kind of danger would have been, was simply getting into a bus somewhere in the world, and you see the bus is maybe not in the best condition, and you look at the driver and he doesn't look professional, or maybe you look at his clothes, or maybe it's his age, or maybe it's his eyes or his face, but you think like, oh, I don't know, he even has a driver's license, this guy. And so on. And they get into traffic, and in some places in the world, traffic is madness. And sometimes the drivers are not fully concentrated, or they take some unnecessary risks. And you don't know the quality of the steering of the bus or the brakes and these things. So you could potentially be in grave danger.
Yeah.
And then on one occasion, I found myself in a jungle in Central Africa on a dirt road with a taxi driver. And it was in the middle of the night, and then there were these uniformed men on the middle of this dirt road, and they waved us out of the vehicle. They stopped the vehicle and they waved us out, and they were armed, and they were irritated right from the get-go. And then very quickly, it was obvious that one of them was angry. He was really, really angry, and I had no real idea why, because I hadn't done anything wrong. And that was a very, very long night where I thought that it would have been the end of everything. I thought they would shoot me and leave me in the forest. But fortunately, I got out of that situation as well. So those are some of the scary things.
That's interesting. Different type of interesting.
Yeah, but from the flip side of the coin, you have so much beauty on this planet. It's quite frequently that you go somewhere in the world and you look out the window of the bus or out of the train, and you say, this could be, maybe somewhere in Africa and you think this could be Switzerland, or maybe you're in North America and you feel like this could be Swaziland, or I mean, it's a very, very beautiful world with mountains and waterfalls and deserts and oceans and lakes. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous planet. And you really get to see a lot when you're not flying. And you see where the countries they meet. And sometimes you go to countries where you don't know anyone who's ever gone there before. And it's puzzling. Why not? Because the people are so sweet and so kind, and the food is good, and the prices are reasonable, and the countries are beautiful. There's truly a lot of beauty in the world and a lot of kindness. So I think it's worth to mention that there's that as well.
That's definitely. And and one of the challenges I think, I would find, or other people find as well, and this is maybe you can answer, is when you go to different countries, like how do you get used to like the food, right? Like quickly, and the best way to experience that whole place is to obviously experience hanging out with people that are local, right? And obviously experience the food, right? But how does like one do that? How do you like get used to that? Because like the spices are different, or the taste is different, and like how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think you just roll along with it. A lot of food is truly the same. You know, all around the world, people they eat rice. All around the world, people they eat chicken. These seems to be some things that people they can agree on. But then the way you prepare your chicken or your rice depends a little bit on where you are. So in Western Africa, they're very fond of ground nuts, which is sort of like peanuts, and they'll mix that in. And if you go across the Pacific, then a lot of the island nations, they like coconut. So they'll put coconut milk inside or coconut oil and so on. But it's still rice and chicken or fish. So in the beginning, I think I wasn't as brave as I am today when it comes to food. In the beginning, I would try to pick, if there's a plate of food, I'll try to pick the things I recognize or where I felt comfortable. And then gradually you try something, say, well, this doesn't look too bad. Let me try this. And then you try more and more and more. And at this point, I've had all sorts of animals that I never thought I would put in my mouth and my stomach. I've had various types of insects. I've had smelly things. I've had slimy things. I've had all sorts of food, just sort of to try it a little bit. And with the spices, I'll tell you a story, because I was in Nigeria for 2 weeks, and Nigeria loves spicy food. So everywhere you go, it's spices, spices, spices. The spices for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. And in the beginning, I was sweating quite a lot. But then after a few days, I started to get used to it. And
the system gets kind of used to it.
Yeah, I'm getting stronger and stronger. And then I left Nigeria going east, and I arrived to Cameroon. And I was in the western part of Cameroon, and someone offered me buying some local food. I said, be careful, you're clearly not local. This is maybe too spicy for you. I said, don't worry about me. I'm the spice king. I just came from Nigeria. I can eat anything. And I ate the food, and it was no problem for me. So, oh, wow, you can handle spicy food. Yeah, don't worry, I came from Nigeria. Then I continued traveling to the eastern part of Cameroon. And I had a dish, and they said, you might want to be careful with that because it's a little spicy. And I, again, with all the confidence in the world, I said, don't worry about me, I can eat anything. And I had a small bite, and my eyes were tearing up, and my nose was running, and my mouth was on fire. And so, different spices around the world. And I think I can eat spicy food, but I have my limits as well, for sure.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I can relate to that a little bit. Like in Indian culture, we eat a lot of spices too, right? And so at home, my wife makes spicy food, but you know what? Then and I thought that in Indian culture you eat like chilies and all those type of things pretty often. But then I tried habanero one time, and habanero was like another level, right?
Yes.
And that's just something like you think you can handle it, but then you kind of find out the hard way how difficult it is. Yeah, true.
I'll tell you what, here in Hong Kong, I found a really nice soup shop. So there's noodle soup. It's delicious. And it's a pepper soup with noodles. And then you decide which level of spice you want. So you can go from low to medium and then it sort of just builds up. And I thought, okay, for sure I'm not dumb enough to go for the level. But I thought I could go for the middle level to begin with and just kind of see what it was like. And once again, my nose was running in my eyes and my mouth was on fire and I didn't know what to do with myself. Yeah, so certainly different spices around the world.
Yeah, that's true. So, when you're traveling, like at some places, how do you overcome the language barrier to be able to communicate and talk? Because, traveling to so many countries, there's places I'm sure where you have been where, they don't speak English and the local language is totally different. And how do you communicate?
Yeah, again, a good question. So from the get-go, I speak Danish, which is the language we speak in Denmark, and it's not very helpful. Nobody speaks Danish. But then in Denmark, when I was growing up, they were also teaching us German. And I thought that German would not be useful as an international language, but I was wrong. As it turns out, a lot of people speak German around the world. There are a lot of people who went to Germany to work for a few years and they picked up the language and they went back home to their country. but also a lot of Germans that traveled around the world and settled and built a hostel or a restaurant or something else. So German has helped me a little bit. English has by far been the greatest gift I have within my life, that I learned to speak English, because Hollywood is such an export product, and there are the movies and the songs and all of this stuff, and people that catch on to it. So there's almost always someone who speaks English. And given sometimes it's not the one person you want to speak to, but then someone nearby will come and step in and say, can I help you? Do you need someone to translate this on? And that might not be the person you want to speak to sometimes. Maybe you want to speak to the farmer on the field, or the woman at the market, or something like this. And then there's some really smart, educated person who comes and takes over. So sometimes you lose from perhaps a really beautiful or interesting experience because you don't speak the local language. But you can certainly always make do. You can always get by based on meeting people who speak English. Then I speak some French, I speak some Spanish, just a little bit. And I also speak a tiny bit of Arabic. So with that, I found it more or less...
At least you can
cover
the
easy,
continents.
Yeah, more or less get by. But I'll tell you where I got in trouble. I got in trouble when I started reaching the stans. So the stans would be, there's 7 countries that finish with stan. So you have your Kazakhstan and Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan and so on. Mm-hmm. And for the large part, their international language is not English. Their international language is Russian. Mm-hmm. So they speak their local languages, like we speak Danish in Denmark. And then if they cannot communicate with foreigners, then they move on to Russian. And then usually they can communicate with everyone. And I really don't speak Russian. So that was a hard place to travel. It's just a beautiful part of the world and people were friendly, but it was very difficult with language.
Yeah, I can understand. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and somewhere like that to go around, and it can be a little challenging. So yeah. So wanted to ask you, even in your work too, what you do is obviously a passionate type of work, right? Being away from home for so many months and years, and following what you're doing. Like what keeps you going? What is your why? And the reason why I bring that up is because, a lot of people, they want to do things that they're passionate about, but they're just not able to do it because, one, they haven't figured out their why. And second thing is, when they do, it's like one of those things, the fear of failure or some other thought that holds them back. Just want to get to know you a little bit more better in hopes that we can inspire other people.
Sure. So the whys are, well, there's several whys within this project. When I left home, the overall goal was I wanted to do something unique. I wanted to become the first and the only one in history at something. I wanted to go to all the countries in the world without flying and be the first in history to reach every country in an unbroken journey complete without flying. So that was the why, and that was the motivating part in 2013. And then at the same time, I was thinking, and it will also be a great adventure. I will see countries I've never seen before. I will meet people I've never met before. I will taste food. I will see colors in a sunset. I will listen to music I've never heard before. It'll be a great adventure at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then I thought I would accomplish all of it in less than 4 years as well. And then just out the gate, within the first couple of weeks of traveling, I found that it was very stressful because I was going so fast. I was spending so much time in trains, and every day it was a new hostel, packing the bag, unpacking the bag, going, find something to eat. And I'm traveling as a goodwill ambassador of the Danish Red Cross. So every day I was also seeking out where's the Red Cross office and meeting with them and doing a small interview with someone from the local office, and then writing down a story and sending that back home to Denmark and then moving on. And after a couple of weeks, I really felt like, what's the point? What's the point of what I'm doing? It's there's no real experience. I'm not really going to museums. I'm not staying with families for several days and getting to feel the culture. It's just logistics, moving, going really fast. And at the same time, I discovered that a lot of the things that I was observing as I was going really fast, when I was arriving to a new capital city or I was going across the countryside, surprised me. A lot of countries which I, for one reason or the other, thought less of, they were not at all less. Sometimes they were much more than the part of the world I came from. The architecture was stunning, and people were wearing modern clothes and modern shoes and belts and haircuts, and the women were beautiful and the guys were fit and good looking, and the countryside was beautiful, and lakes and forest and all this stuff. And I really felt that I was a well-educated man, well-educated in the world before I left home. And since I was surprised by seeing that the world was a different place than what I realized, I thought maybe other people, they were not aware of that. So I decided I'm going to share more about what I'm seeing and how I experience the world. And hopefully people, they will learn more and more by that. So having said all of that, motivation shifted. And motivation is still sometimes I want to finish, get to the last country, and then be that person and say, I went to all the countries without flying. But it's less important than what it was in the beginning. It's far more important for me to promote the Red Cross and the Red Crescent, the humanitarian part of this project, and tell people that it's the world's largest humanitarian organization, and it makes a difference every day to people's lives all around the world, and that you can be a part of it. You can donate some money, you can become a volunteer, you can spread some news about it, and then hopefully it will be able to commence more work, and more people will improve their lives. It's also a motivating factor to say that people are learning about the world in a way they didn't before from conventional media and social media. When I went to Syria, I was able to tell that people in Syria, they still take selfies and update Facebook and Instagram, or that they fall in love and go to weddings and so on, and sort of make the world a less scary place and more approachable for many people. And then also, I would say that a big part of this project is to motivate people, say that I set myself a goal and I'm fighting really, really hard for it. It's a crazy goal and it's a very complex goal. All the countries in the world without flying. But if I can do that, then other people, they should definitely be able to finish their education or go out and find a job or lose weight or learn a language or travel more or learn to play the guitar or whatever people they want to do. And it all starts with making the decision, I am going to do this, because we can dream about things from now on until the end of our lives. But the real thing is to pick up the guitar and say, today it's happening.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And really, just like how you put it, all the people that I've interviewed on the podcast here, I don't know a single person that hasn't been through challenges while trying to pursue their passion. It's just so common, right? And what happens is that, just generally speaking, like you shared, is that you just got to push through and just continue to do it and make the decision. Like, you could continue to think about it for so many years, like you said, until the end of your life, or you can actually make a decision, start working on it, and it's meaningful. It's something that that's going to give you happiness, going to give you satisfaction, right? Hey, I'm doing something worthwhile, so that's that. Thank you so much.
And something else which I can add to that is that at some point it's not going to feel like it's worthwhile, no matter what it is. If you're trying to lose weight, for instance, at some point you're going to tell yourself, I don't need to lose weight, I really want to eat that. You disappear from the path. Or your education, you feel, I can't read all these books, and I can probably get a job without this education and so on. So at some point within trying to achieve your goal, it is probably going to feel like it's not worthwhile, and you might as well abandon it. At some point it is going to be painful, it's going to be annoying, you're not going to want it. Even though somehow you want the overall goal, you want the education, you want to speak the language and so on, at some point you'll just settle within yourself and say, I don't want it enough. And that's where you have to push through. That's, that period will always be there, and maybe there'll be several periods like that, but you have to push through it. And that's why you see people in the Olympics. Those people suffered. And they suffered a lot with it. They also had great days and they had good times and so on. But I guarantee you, no one gets to present some anything within the Olympics without pain and dedication for hours every day throughout their life.
No, that's absolutely true. That's just how it is. Like, if you look at, like you said, the Olympics, if you look at basketball players, baseball players, or anybody who's on a professional team, of course they're talented, right? And of course they're talented, but then they practice every single day to get to where they are in life, right?
Put in the hours.
You just got to put in the work to make it happen. That's it. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. So what's next? I mean, I know what you got here is you got the rest of the countries to visit. Once that's done, what's the plan?
Well, the plan, I joke and I say, so I usually travel with a hat, So I joke and I say, I'll take the hat off.
Looks pretty cool on
and
you.
Then I will go to bed. I'll keep it then. So I'll keep that. And then I'll say, well, I take the hat off and I go to sleep. And then I will sleep for 1 month because I deserve it. And then when I wake up, I will shave because generally my wife doesn't like the length of my beard. And then we want to start a family. And then I want to see friends and I want to see my own family. And then once things settle down a little bit, the idea is that there will be a book. A book will come out of this project. And then I enjoy motivational speaking and speaking engagements. I've been doing quite a few all around the world. And I hope that I'll be able to visit schools and companies and events and so on, and come and share my stories and my learnings, and hopefully pass something on from this project to the people that are willing to listen, and continue to do that for many years.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And you know what? All of that sounds like really so nice. Having a family, writing a book, which it sounds like that's the next step. That's the next logical step. You should do that. And also motivational speaking too, because I mean, following something that you're doing, your passionate work and going through the challenges, it's just that sometimes listening to people, and that's why I wanted to invite you on the podcast, is listening to people who are actually achieving things in life, and anybody can do it as long as they dedicate themselves and set aside the fears even when they're coming, and gotta just have a process to deal with it, and that's that, and that's awesome.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Any other special message that you want to share, that you want to add to this? How can one get a hold of you? I know on your Instagram is at Once Upon a Saga. That's the handle. And then also you have a website called www.onceuponasaga.dk. So that's how they can contact you. I know you just shared that you believe in Red Cross, and that's how. Is there a link? I mean, if you send me the link, and I'll share that on the podcast as well.
That's very kind of you. Yeah, so people are welcome to come and join and connect with me. The project runs on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, there's a YouTube channel. And then obviously there's the website, which you mentioned as well. And if they write .dk or .com, it doesn't matter. .com will direct it to. As I've gone around the world and I've met all of these people of all different ages and types and sizes and all these different cultures and languages and whatnot, I found that anywhere I go, people are just people. And within this project, we have a motto, which is, a stranger is a friend you've never met before. And when I left home, it was just something that sounded nice, but within a few weeks of traveling, it was definitely proven. A stranger is a friend you've never met before. And it's sort of a philosophy where you decide how are you going to treat the next person that you meet. Mm-hmm. Are you going to look down on them? Are you going to push them aside? Are you going to forget their name? Are you going to let them speak or not? Or are you going to be kind and smile and look them in the eyes where it's appropriate, because not everywhere in the world it's appropriate to look people in the eyes. Are you going to embrace them and listen to them and understand them? And if you go one route, you're not going to make a friend, and if you go the other route, you're more likely to make a friend. And to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which religion people they adhere to or their political, what they're convinced. People are just people. They like selfies and barbecues and family and safety, and they get stuck in traffic, and they like sports and this stuff. People are people all around the world, and it's truly fascinating. So that would be my message.
That's awesome that you shared that. I mean, yeah, generally speaking, you're absolutely correct. Sometimes we have these differences formed in our mind, but just people are just people. Everybody wants at a basic level same thing: good food, good clothing, housing, like you said, safety, family, friends, have a good time, and that's all it comes down to. The whole world is like that.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen it with my own eyes. So just keep that in mind. People are just people.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, Thor, on this interview and sharing your experience and your journey. And really, I personally found it very motivating, and about just following your passion is just necessary. And even when you're going through difficulties like you share, even when you go through those periods of where you're not feeling as confident in yourself, just keep on pushing through and just got to make it through. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with me. I really, really enjoyed talking to you here today.
Thank you very much. It was absolutely my pleasure.
Cool.